when baking with spices, everyone's gonna know you have something delicious in the oven. Oh my gosh, look at that. I love my spice cake with maple espresso buttercream because it's so comforting. Those complex combinations of the clove, the cardamom, the nutmeg, and the cinnamon feel like a warm hug. In this chapter, I'm gonna show you how to make my spice cake with a maple espresso buttercream. We're gonna sift all of our dried ingredients together. We're gonna cream off our butter and sugar. We're gonna bake it up and then finish it with a delicious maple espresso buttercream and a fine dusting of fresh nutmeg. So this cake uses this spiced flavor star. A flavor star is just profiling whatever flavors are gonna be most prominent on your palate. And that comes from the combination of warming spices. Over here, you'll notice I have all of my ingredients in the order in which I'm going to be incorporating them into our batter. So let's get started with sifting our dry ingredients first. We're gonna take our flour and we're gonna carefully put it into our sifter. We're gonna drop the rest of that into there. Next goes in our warming spices. So in here we have our cinnamon, our clove, cardamom, and nutmeg, some salt, and then our baking powder. I think we're almost there. Okay, that looks good. So now on our large piece of parchment paper, I'm going to spread our dry ingredients lengthwise. So you're just gonna gently place that down and then just slide it aside until you're ready for it. So now we're gonna cream together our light brown sugar, our granulated sugar, and our butter. In goes 1 cup of butter, which is just 2 sticks. And remember, it needs to be room temperature. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to achieve that light and fluffy texture that is gonna be making your cake so delicious. In goes our sugar and our light brown sugar. So now I'm gonna pop this down and we're gonna start on low so that we don't have any kick up. Things are beginning to get incorporated, so I'm gonna kick it up to medium and we're gonna let it go for a couple of minutes so we can get light and fluffy. Oh, this is looking perfect. So this is pretty good. It's been going for about 3-ish minutes or so, and I'm gonna stop it here. Look at that light and fluffy texture. It's much paler in appearance. Some of the sugar has started to come together. So we're ready for our next step. I'm just going to scrape all the sides down, push all the way to the center. It just really helps to ensure a smooth and consistent texture for our cake. So next, we're gonna drop in our eggs 1 at a time. Start on low. And in goes 1 egg. Ooh, that looks great. So let's drop in our last egg. Beautiful, I'm gonna place this over here. Okay, so this is looking perfect. I'm gonna stop this here and scrape down the sides one more time. Oh my gosh. Kind of feels like what I would imagine. Well, at least what I did when I was a little girl. What playing with a cloud feels like. Next goes in our espresso. So I love to use the espresso just to add a little bit of something unexpected in flavor. And then next, a little vanilla extract. In goes our vanilla. I'm gonna drop this down and just let it lightly incorporate for about 30 seconds. Immediately, you smell that really good espresso. So now I have my mixer running on low, which is super important because we are gonna alternate incorporating our dry and wet ingredients. We're gonna first do our dry. We're just gonna fold together lengthwise our parchment paper. We're gonna fold down and clamp it at the back. And then we're just gonna pour in slowly like a funnel. So I put in about the first half, and I'm just gonna let that go. And then if you find that anything clumps around the top, you can just give it a quick smack and it will go into the base of the bowl. Now that that's in, I'm gonna move the speed up to medium. Okay. Now I'm gonna grab my milk and mixing on low, I'm gonna pour in about half. Make sure to go slow because it's gonna take a little bit longer for the milk to incorporate than the dry ingredients would. Once everything starts to incorporate, we're gonna move our speed back up to medium for just a couple of seconds, alternating our dry ingredients with the rest of our milk. Oh my God, it smells incredible, but it looks even better. It's ready. So I'm gonna stop this here. I'm gonna unlock and pop this up. While I let that rest, I'm gonna prepare my pan. I'm gonna grab my 9x9 square pan and a glove. So you're gonna start with greasing the entire pan with butter. Toss that. Then we're gonna place our parchment. And this is just gonna help with our cake when it's time to release it out. We're gonna dust in just a little bit of flour, and we're gonna rotate that around by just knocking it about. And so just knock it around to each edge, and then any excess, just drop your pan like that. I'm gonna grab that batter and my rubber spatula, and I'm gonna get this delicious batter into this oven so we can bake it off. And I'm going to scrape down my sides one more time. That looks great. So in goes our cake batter. Oh, wow. Gorgeous. Just gonna wanna scrape everything out, and look at how light and pillowy it is. And then you're just gonna wanna move it around to each edge so that it can bake evenly. Okay. Oh, very nice. So we're gonna whack the pan just one time over from about 3 inches off of any hard surface. So the reason that we give it a good whack is to release any air bubbles that have started to pop up through the batter, and then we're gonna place it in so it can evenly come up with the presence of the heat. Let's get this in the oven. So I've already preheated my oven to 350 degrees. I'm gonna place it directly in the center so it can have even distribution of heat from both the top and the bottom. We're gonna come back in 30 minutes and see how it's doing. So we're just gonna insert a toothpick into the center. Ooh, it's ready. So it's come out clean, there's no leftover uncooked batter, and if you happen to see a couple of crumbs, that's no problem. That just means it's gonna be a very delicious and moist cake. I'm gonna place this down here. So while that cools, we're gonna move on to my favorite part, which is the buttercream. So I'm gonna bring over my ingredients. First thing, I'm gonna drop my butter into my mixing bowl and sprinkle in my salt. And we're gonna start on medium. We're gonna let that go for about 30 seconds till the salt and butter have incorporated. Ooh, that looks good. I see ribbons of butter. And I actually use unsalted butter for all of my cakes and buttercreams because it lets me control the level of salt, making sure I create even balance of flavor. So I'm just gonna pack that into the middle. And then next I'm gonna grab my sifter, and I'm going to sift in the first half, roughly 1 cup of our confectioner sugar. So I'm just going to shake some into here. We're gonna sift in. And we sift to help remove any unnecessary clumps. And just make sure you shake it around as needed so that everything's sifting through. All right, we're good for our first portion. I'm gonna pop this back on. Okay, things are coming together. Let's touch it up on medium. And you're gonna wanna just let that go until it comes together like a fine paste. That's great. So I'm gonna take it off and scrape down our sides again. Grab our sifter again. And we're just gonna sift in what remains, which is about a cup. Tap it down and let's go. Almost there. All right, that's just about done. Just knocking out whatever's on the edge. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so this looks good. Things are getting incorporated. I'm gonna just smack down some of the confectionery sugar that's on the top part. Looks good, and we're gonna bump it up to medium. That's great. And this is the exact texture that we were looking for. And if you look, it's like a fine paste, which is just absolutely perfect. And next we're gonna go in with a little maple syrup. I can't express this enough, it needs to be real maple syrup. The other things that you might find are not gonna render the same flavor. And a little bit of brewed espresso. And if you don't happen to have an espresso machine at home, that's no problem. You can do stovetop, or you can pop by your local coffee shop and just ask for a shot. So in goes that. It's perfectly fine to put all your wet in all at once, but you do run the risk of having it splash back at you even with it on low. It just becomes a greater ratio of wet versus our paste. That looks good. We're gonna drop in our heavy whipping cream, which is gonna give us that light and fluffy texture that we need. It's ready. So we're gonna turn this off. And we don't wanna undo the work of the whipping cream, but we are going to smooth it out just a bit with our rubber spatula to get rid of any large presence of air bubbles. So our cake has been cooling for about 45 minutes and it's completely fine to pop out of its pan. We're just gonna carefully flip it over, give it a little rock and shake, and let it come out. Look at that. We're gonna peel off our parchment paper in place. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so now it's time to top our cake with that velvety maple espresso buttercream. But first, I'm gonna grab my offsetting spatula. And then what you're gonna do, if you do have one, is you're gonna rotate it carefully between your fingers while moving your wrist in a very fluid side-to-side motion. And I'll show you. We're gonna go big dollop. Right into the center. Getting all of that luscious buttercream out. I'm gonna set this over here. And if you happen to have kids, give them this, they will thank you. I'm just kidding. Don't give your children espresso. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna wiggle down. And we're just gonna repeat that motion until we get it to the look that we want and it's spread evenly across the top of our cake. Oh my gosh, look at that. So if you do happen to have an offsetting spatula, but maybe you don't know what exactly is the benefit of using it, you use the base of it for broad strokes to spread, right? To get it evenly over your cake. But then, this is the cool part, you can use the tip for more fine detailing. And I think that's why it's my favorite. But again, this can be easily achieved with just a good old-fashioned butter knife. Okay, I think we're just about done. It's looking beautiful. I'm gonna use my tip to make just a little swivel detail on top. I love it. Now I'm gonna grab my nutmeg and a microplane or a zester. I just find that having fresh nutmeg ground over top adds a nice sensory element. So let's do this. So you're just gonna go just like that. Oh my gosh, gorgeous. And it smells incredible. All right, I think that looks good. So I'm just gonna set this aside. So I like to cut mine into squares. Ooh, it's so moist. Ooh. All right, let's see. Oh my God, it's so good. And you really get all of those spices on your palate. Pairs beautifully with the espresso and the buttercream. In this chapter, I taught you how to make my spice cake with maple espresso buttercream. We learned how to sift together our dry ingredients, cream together our butter and our sugars. We baked it off and we finished it with this velvety and delicious maple espresso buttercream topped with a fresh dusting of nutmeg. I hope you find this cake as delicious and comforting as I do.